So I recently did a blog post on how to create a plugin for Gatsby, specifically a source plugin. So one of the things that's really neat about Gatsby is that it makes it very easy for you to bring in all these different data sources into your Gatsby site. And so they have a number of plugins that are already out there that do a pretty good job of pulling in things from like the file system or from your blog or something like that. But you can also, let's say, point to an API and then pull stuff in by creating your own plugin. So I wanted to show a quick example of how you could very easily create a plugin in Gatsby to be able to perform this task in your Gatsby site. So let's take a quick look over here. And so what I have right now is I have a kind of an empty directory. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to install a new Gatsby project from site. And let's call this, we're going to call this a playground site. And so I'm going to go ahead and set that up and install that using the Gatsby new command. And you can see it doesn't take too long. Okay. And if I come here and do an ls, I can see now I've got my playground site. Now I'm also going to go ahead and I'm going to install right next to it. I'm going to create a plugin, a source plugin, and this is based off of the Gatsby starter plugin. And they actually do a pretty good job of documenting this on their site. So if we come over here and take a quick look at this this article right here, they have an article here on how to create a source plugin. And it goes through, it does a lot of different examples here of like how you can pull stuff in from an Apollo server and create subscriptions and stuff like that. I wanted to create something that was a little bit more simple. I just want to pull from an API, simple REST-based request, and be able to put that onto a website. So let's come back out here to, oops. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come into our playground site that I just created, and I am going to open up Visual Studio Code. And I'm going to try that again. Okay, so here's Visual Studio Code. And if we look right here, we can see that we have a page that just says Hello World. And let's go ahead and test to make sure that's working. I'm going to open up the terminal here. And I'm going to say Gatsby develop. And that's spinning up the site. We open that up a little bit bigger so it's easier for people to read what's going on in here. Okay, so if I come over here, I select that, we can see Hello World, and just show you that this is not smoke and mirrors. I'm just going to change this. And if I come back here to the browser, you can see that it's already made that change. So now we've done that, what I want to do is I want to come out and go to my plugin folder, and we're going to open up a Visual Studio Code instance for that. So let's come here. Should be source plugin. Okay, and here is our source plugin. So this is from their starter, and you can see here that there actually is not a whole lot in here. Right now they basically just have this console log on the pre-init. So let's come back out here. I'm going to restart this, or basically stop it. And now what I want to do, if I want to use a plugin inside of my Gatsby site, what you have to do is you have to come over here to your Gatsby config site, and we need to add it to our list of plugins. So I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to say require.resolve. And what I'm going to do in here is I'm going to specify our source plugin. So And that should do that. Now if I come back down here, go to rerun this, we should see here in our comments here that it loaded our Gatsby Starter plugin. So let's start configuring our plugin to pull an external source. So I'm going to come back here into our plugin here, and I'm going to change this so that we're going to call our plugin a ships plugin. And so I figured for the example API here, what I was going to do is I'm going to use the Star Wars API. If you're not familiar with the Star Wars API, it's a free API for kind of playing around with making REST requests. So now that I've done that, I'm going to make another change here to my source plugin. And I'm going to add the Axios library because I want to be able to make requests out. I really like the Axios library for making REST requests. So let's go ahead and add that in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say npm I for install Axios and -- save. What that'll do is I'll save this to the package.json. So if I come over here, we can see that it's added. Oops. I think it's added. You know what? We are in the site. No, we're in the plugin. So I went ahead and added Axios in here for the dependencies. Here it is listed right there. And now that I've done that, I'm going to go ahead and start adding my changes in here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to import in my Axios library, just like this. So now we can start making requests inside of here. And if we go back and take a look at the documentation for the Gatsby plugin, they have an example here which just kind of statically creates some data. In this case, it's a hello world and then a second post. I'm just going to copy this in here and use this as the basis. Just make things simple. So if I come over here and I paste that in, we can see here that it's exporting out the source nodes, an async lambda function here, or arrow function. It's created a kind of like a constant variable here called post node type for the posts. And then it's using this create node function here to go in here and create the nodes. And what will happen is when we go to save this and I come back into our Gatsby playground site here, I'm going to go ahead and rerun this. And what this is going to do is it'll pick up these new nodes that have been changed. In this case, it's going to create a node that will be available for doing GraphQL queries using a post. So if I come back in here, we can see here that they have a graphical client here. And we can see right here that there's this all post here. So if I come over here and I select edges, node, ID, description, and I go and run this, this returns back those same nodes that were essentially hard-coded into the plugin. So what I'm going to do now is I have some code that I've already written here. I'm going to go ahead and kill this. And I'm going to come back to our plugin. And I'm going to modify this so that it actually pulls from an external source. So the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to come over here and I have a function that I've already written that's using Axios to query data. So I'm going to come over here, and what this does is this goes out to the Star Wars API and then it pulls back starships. And the way they have that API set up is that it can only return 10 rows at a time. I know from previously working with this that there's actually 36 different starships that are in that API. So I want to be able to recursively go through that and pull back all of the different starships into one data structure that I can then use in my Gatsby site. So now that I've done that, I'm going to add some code here and replace this hard-coded post data here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here. I'm going to change this so that this is going to be my ship node type constant, and I'll just change that so that it's ship. Down here, I want to get rid of this hard-coded data here, so I'm just going to delete that and paste in this new code. And we can see right here what this is actually doing is that it sets up a flag, a counter here, and then an empty array for the ships. And what's going to happen is that it's just going to check to see if this is true. As long as this is true, it's going to come through here and query a new page of ship datas. And then I'm using the REST operator here to copy in these ships into this array. And that gives us an array. So now I've done that, I need to change this this for each so that it's now using the ships data. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here. I'm going to say ships, and we're going to change that from post to ship. Now if I come over here, I can use REST operator on the ship. We'll change this create node ID so that it uses our new constant, and this is going to be ship. There's no ID it's being returned from that, so I'm just going to use name as my ID here. And then down here, I'm just going to change this so this is ship, and the same thing here for the content digest ship. So now I've done that. This should actually return out all the different ships here into my plugin. So I'm going to come back here and I'm going to restart the Gatsby site here. And while that's restarting, I'm going to come back into the graphical client here, and let's just refresh this and see what happens. All right, so it's not recognizing that anymore, but we're not seeing the ships data, so something went wrong here. Let's take a look at this. And sure enough, I didn't change the constant here. So let's go back to this, and we can see here is that constant. So I need to change that to ship. One of the dangers of copying and pasting code. And let's come back in here and let's try running this again. Let's see if it gets any errors this time. And that is looking better. So let's come back. Let's requery this, and we can see now we have this all ships here. I can go over here to edges, node, and I can pick ID, name, model, hyperdrive rating, and we'll get rid of this query right here. Run that, and there we can see that we've got all of our data here. So if I want to use this in the site, it's actually pretty easy to do that as well. So if I come back over here to pages, this is an example. I'm going to make some changes here. One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to import in the graphical or the GraphQL. And we can get that right from Gatsby. And now we've done that, I'm going to remove this function here, and I'm just going to paste in some code that I've already written here that uses a query and a new method for returning the home page. So I'm going to paste this in here, and just so you can see what I have in here, there's no smoke and mirrors. I've created an arrow function for home page, and it's destructing a data off of the input for that arrow function. And inside of here, I just have selected ships, and then what I'm doing is I'm using a map off of the data. So it's getting all ships data edges. And then inside of here, I'm making a key off the ID that we created. And then I'm just outputting the name, the model, and the hyperdrive rating here. And we can see it's all here inside of this GraphQL, which we also are exporting out as the query. If I come back and change this, and I come back out to our site, if I go here to localhost and refresh this, we can see all of our ships. So as you can see, it's very easy to create a source plugin that you can use with Gatsby to import your own data in. This can be used for all kinds of different things, and there's a lot of power in here that I haven't really even kind of covered yet. But I just want to show something to show how simple it was, how easy it is to actually import data into a Gatsby site. So if you like this channel and you want to see more content like this, please subscribe to the channel. If you like the video, give it a thumbs up. If you don't like it, you can give it a thumbs down, but please give it a thumbs up. It helps the algorithm and helps more people see the videos on YouTube's using YouTube's algorithm. So have a nice morning.